everybody. I hope you're all having a good night. It's about 10 o'clock Eastern time, and I've just had a couple really crazy days, but I promised I'd get this video done. I promised this a couple days ago, and I thought I really need to do it. So my dog called me out. He taught me a big lesson, right? And I am so grateful that he did. If we listen to our dogs, they are our greatest teachers. And I don't mean any disrespect. I've had some amazing, amazing human mentors and teachers, but honestly, my dogs have been, and the dogs of my clients have been my greatest teachers. So basically, what has gone on is I have Caedmon, right, is my young dog I'm getting ready for competition. And he is a phenomenally talented dog. Like he's probably the best tracking dog I've ever had. And he's a Malinois to me that tracks more like a German Shepherd. And I had Shepherds before I had Malinois. So I know the difference, right? He just, and not only is he good at it, he just loves doing it, right? Like as a puppy, you could hear his nose down that whole track, right? And so for a few reasons, though, I got lazy. One, I think I got lazy and a little complacent because dude's talented and he loves doing it. Like there's plenty of gas in that tank, right? So, so that's a piece of why I got lazy. And again, I'm not going to name the trainer, but I did recall seeing some posts that a trainer had posted about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he's a very well-known, this is a very well-known trainer, a very well-respected trainer. And I have a lot of respect for this trainer, but discussing, how it's not right to do essential food for training. And, the dog should, have the access to food. And then, like if you're not doing the right thing with your relationship, that would be the problem, right? It's not an essential food issue. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this trainer's got something, right? And so, I just kind of started doing some food bowl jackpots for some higher level obedience stuff for the dog. And, even though his young engagement work was all from my hands, everything from my hands. So I had that developed that from him. But because of these things, I didn't do what I usually do with my tracking dogs, right? And what I usually do with my tracking dogs is somewhere at about a year old. I make the point with them that they're not going to get any food from my hands for obedience. They're not going to get any food like jackpots in a bowl for a great retrieve or for, any like longer criteria healing, right? Like, because there are things sometimes if you want, you can do like a food jackpot in a bowl and like ask the dog to do longer amounts of work or more higher value work, right? And then you can do the jackpot that way. And so I was taking more that route because of the reasons I explained. And it was fine for a while because again, this dog is really, really talented, right? But for the past 2 months, if I'm being completely honest, I've been seeing some kind of like bumps in his tracking, right? And I just kind of, brushed it off as other things. I need to teach him this a little bit better, or I need to show him that skill better, or, like we'll get through it, right? And so, but to be honest with everybody, and I'm honest with myself, he was blowing turns at a pretty high rate, like probably about 30 to 40% of the time he was missing the turn. And like missing the turn in my book, right, is that head goes past the turn and then he would back up and find it and go, right? Like I want him to pencil that turn. And so, my dogs also do understand communication and redirection and boundary corrections for making mistakes, right? They understand to be motivated into tracking through the remote collar. They understand the botcher, right, as like a little pop back if they've gone too far or they're going too fast. Like they understand all of that. And the thing is, though, with Cade, though, is he's a really resilient dog. So I think for corrections to really make a huge difference for him in tracking, they would have to be a heavier correction than I personally feel comfortable giving. And I think that they would then change his overall picture in the tracking, which is just beautiful. Like he's such a powerful tracker. And so after 2 months of watching this and really thinking through it, right? Like I just hit this place last week where I was like, this isn't feeling right. And my dog's calling me out on this, right? Like, so what am I going to do about this? And I really thought about it. And I'm like, Tech, you got to practice what you preach. Right? You got to, I don't care how much you love this dog, you adore this dog, you think this dog is amazing, Tech. I don't care that, he's got all of the ability in the world, right? You've gotta go to essential food on the track. And if you're not going to get it anywhere else, buddy, like preservation drive and tracking, you got to go there, Tech. And so I made a promise to myself and I made a promise to Cade. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be lazy about this. Right. And I'm not going to be complacent about this. And I'm going to learn the lesson that you're teaching me, dog. So Monday, he got all his food over the weekend, right? Like this is not about starving a dog and then having them track. That's not proper, right? So what I did was Monday, we went tracking Monday morning, and he had probably about half of a full day's worth of food on that track. And then I don't feel bad about this. That evening, I couldn't get to the track. I could not get there. And so he did not get to eat Monday night. There are plenty of dogs where, like, I know even Lynn Volhard's system, like they will fast a dog for a day, right? So one meal, not a problem. He had, approximately, to give you an idea, he still had a good pound and a quarter of the equivalent of pound and a quarter of raw diet, right? So dog's fine. So, but for him, what it was though, was about losing something he was anticipating getting, right? Because that night, I've got my 3 Malinois. And so my retired guy, my 12-year-old, I asked him to do a couple of easy things. And then I'm like, load up in your crate, here's your food bowl, right? My little 5.5-year-old female is like, I have her do more prolonged work, and then free, you can go have your food bowl, right? So Cade sees this and he thinks it's going to be his turn. And I'm like, not tonight, buddy. I love you. I will see you in the morning. And so Tuesday morning, we got out, we went out tracking. And by the way, like these tracks, when I lay them, we're talking like close to 1,000 pace tracks. And it's not about putting a bunch of food in every step, right? It's about, he's going long lengths of time, 70, 80 paces without food, 70 paces into a turn without food, right? Learning that or not learning, because he already does know this, but reinforcing that you need to stick with source to find valuable things, right? And sometimes an article leads to payoff of food. Sometimes source itself leads to a payoff of food, right? But you need to keep hunting. And that Tuesday morning, when I took him out and he hadn't gotten those food bowl jackpots from the night before, I had my tracking dog back. I had this dog that the first 2 years of his life were amazing tracking, right? First 2.5 years of his life, I had him back, right? Like you could hear his nose in every step. He was checking everywhere, like every step he was checking. And he was definitely making the connection, like source is important, right? And source is where I'm going to find food, and I didn't get it in the bowl last night, so I better work hard here, right? And in the dog self-managed that, right? I didn't have to correct him. I didn't have to get involved. And that's a beautiful thing, right? But that's preservation drive. Right? It kicked in real fast for him too, because he knows it from other things, right? But it kicked in real fast on the track for him. And then I took him out Tuesday night and I tracked him, and he got the other, his other meal. And I made a pact with this dog. We go tracking twice a day right now. So basically what I've decided is we do 5 days tracking twice a day. And then he's going to have roughly 9 days off, where we're going to do physical conditioning, and we'll be doing food bowl jackpots for some of the higher obedience stuff I do. And then we'll be doing some precision work with food, right? And he'll be off tracking. And then we're going to do 5 days of tracking twice a day again, because I'm telling you, this dog, like it's beautiful. It's amazing. And I didn't have to get in there and change the picture, as far as I didn't have to correct him and watch his attitude change. His attitude has only gotten stronger this week, and his precision is through the roof. In fact, I did a test on Wednesday, and that's part of why this video is happening, because Wednesday I did a trial like test track and the dog aced it. Like he threw it on a 100-point track. On mediocre terrain, right? It wasn't horribly difficult, but it wasn't easy either. And he did a beautiful track, and I purposely put things in there to test him, and he passed every test. And he showed me, I know source is important, right? Like source is important. And that's a whole other thing, right? Like, so just because I'm putting food at places in the track doesn't mean that the dog is crutched on food. If we've made the right connection, right? So think about detection work, right? We pair source with some type of reward. For a lot of dogs, it's a ball or a tug. I've done things as far as training diabetic alert dogs where we don't want to reward with a ball or tug because we can't have a dog playing tug in the middle of a restaurant, right? So we do reward with food. And so we teach the dogs, we make that association of this odor, right? This is source. This leads to reward. We pair the two for a while, and then we teach the dog that source leads to reward, right? So if you think about tracking the same way, source is the disturbed terrain, and also whatever falls off of us as we're walking, right? This is important. Stick with this long enough. Keep hunting this and you will find something good. But you have to stick with this source, right? That's hunting, right? And again, preservation drive is involved in all of that, right? And I should not have ever swayed from my path on that. I should not have, because I knew better. And I am so grateful to this dog for calling me out. And the other thing I did was on Wednesday night, I took him and I put him on some really difficult terrain. You've never seen it before. And there's a video of it up on my Facebook page, right? And I mean, it is dried dirt. It's not tilled. There's not soft. You can't make footsteps in it. It was dry, hard dirt with dried, like roots and very sparse hay-like grass over the top of it, right? And there was not much there. And I did it. It was a short track, and it was definitely easier, right? As far as distance and where I put food, but I still put some things in there where he had to make decisions. I didn't food bait the turns. He had to find those turns and take them and stay with source to get to something that was rewarding. And again, he would not have handled that terrain Wednesday night that way 2 weeks ago or last week, not with the emotional state he was previously in. See, his emotional state is now correct. He has a reason for hunting. Preservation drive has a reason for hunting. And I just think that it is the best way to get there with dogs in tracking. I think that, there are so many people that are still forcing tracking, right? And they're correcting dogs for making mistakes where the dog will self-manage. The dog will slow themselves down if they're truly hunting in the right way. And they're understanding that source leads to the food. You got to make that connection. So that's my lesson. I'm grateful my dog called me out. I'm grateful that he reminded me what I knew to be true is true. And I am grateful that I have taken a step back and redone this week. And I hope this is helping some people. Take care. Bye-bye.